The alien princess asked a single question. The human dropped his weapon. The rocky planet stretched endlessly beneath Captain Elias Kane's boots, a landscape of jagged cliffs and barren dust plains. The twin suns hung low in the orange sky, casting long shadows that danced like silent specters across the terrain. Kane paused at the edge of a deep ravine, scanning the horizon with his visor's enhanced optics. The planet was on the fringe of human-explored space, one of the uncharted worlds they had mapped only from orbit. Reports of alien activity here were scarce, but Kane's instincts told him to remain alert. Somewhere out there, danger could emerge at any moment. His team moved cautiously behind him, every step measured, boots crunching over gravel and loose stones. Sergeant Leela Morno, his second-in-command, whispered a reminder. "Stay focused, Captain. We don't know what's waiting for us." Kane nodded without speaking, his eyes never leaving the horizon. They had been sent to investigate strange energy readings coming from this sector, signals that did not match any human or known alien technology. The feeling of unease pressed against him, a weight in his chest that he couldn't shake. A flicker of light caught Kane's eye. He squinted, adjusting his visor. At first, he thought it was a reflection of the sun off the rocks, but the movement was deliberate, purposeful. It wasn't natural. He raised his hand, signaling his team to halt. The light condensed into a figure descending from the sky, moving with an elegance and precision that was almost hypnotic. Kane's pulse quickened. The figure landed lightly, her form framed against the harsh sunlight. She was humanoid, but unlike any human Kane had ever seen. Her armor shimmered with iridescent patterns that shifted as she moved, and her presence exuded authority, confidence, and something else, an intelligence that seemed to pierce directly into Kane's mind. The figure raised a hand, but not in aggression. Kane instinctively gripped the handle of his weapon. "Identification," he barked, voice steady but tense. "State your purpose." The alien remained silent, her movements deliberate and calm. The dust swirled around her as though acknowledging her command over the environment. Kane could feel his team's tension, each soldier ready to react at a moment's notice. Then she spoke, her voice carrying across the rocky expanse in perfect universal. The words were simple, yet they struck Kane like a thunderclap. "Why do you fight without knowing?" The question was soft, almost melodic, but it cut through Kane's defensive instincts. He froze. The words lingered in the air, echoing in his mind. He had spent his life preparing for battles, for threats, for enemies who showed no mercy. Yet here was a being, unarmed in appearance, asking a question that challenged everything he believed. Kane's mind raced. He had faced countless alien species in skirmishes and battles across the stars. Most had been hostile, most had required decisive action to survive. And yet something about this alien, this princess, gave him pause. Her eyes were unlike any he had seen in a warrior, deep, intelligent, and piercing, yet filled with curiosity rather than malice. Kane's grip on his weapon loosened slightly, though his body remained tense. He had been trained to act first, think later, but this moment defied training. This question demanded thought. Sergeant Morno whispered beside him, her voice tight with tension. "Captain, what do we do?" Kane glanced at his team. Their faces mirrored his own confusion and apprehension. They had seen aliens, but never like this. Kane realized that the entire dynamic of this encounter was different. They were used to enemies, to threats, to immediate danger. This being was none of those things, or perhaps she was something far more dangerous than any weapon could measure. She was unknown. Kane took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. He forced his voice to sound firm, authoritative. "Identify yourself." "What is your mission here?" The princess tilted her head slightly, as if amused by the question. Her eyes never left Kane's, and he felt a strange weight pressing on his mind, an awareness of his thoughts and fears. It was subtle, not invasive, but enough to make him second-guess his assumptions. She did not respond with words. Instead, she extended both hands, palms facing him, a gesture that seemed to convey peace and openness rather than hostility. Kane hesitated. The dust swirled around her, catching the light and making her appear almost ethereal. His training screamed at him to take control, to aim, to fire if necessary. But something deeper, something human, told him to pause. He remembered the countless times humans had reacted too quickly in the past, attacking first and asking questions later. How many conflicts had been avoided if only someone had taken a moment to understand? The thought struck him harder than any weapon ever could. A sudden shimmer in the air indicated movement above. Kane's team turned instinctively, scanning the sky for reinforcements for any sign of an ambush. But there was nothing, only the princess, standing calmly, her gaze unwavering. Her presence radiated authority without aggression. Kane realized she was not here to attack, at least not in the way humans understood attack. Her power was subtle, psychological, and he felt it pressing against his mind, challenging him to reconsider every assumption he had ever made about aliens and threats. The question repeated itself in his mind, not in words but in its essence. Why do you fight without knowing? Kane's thoughts raced back through his life, his experiences, the battles he had fought, the enemies he had destroyed. How often had he acted on instinct, on fear, without truly understanding the situation? The princess's question was more than inquiry. It was a mirror, reflecting back the choices humans had made for centuries. He could feel his pulse slowing as he considered her perspective, his weapon lowering slightly as contemplation took precedence over reflex. Sergeant Morneau's voice was quieter now, uncertain. Maybe we should wait." Kane nodded, though his body remained ready to act. Every muscle was still tense, every instinct screaming caution. Yet for the first time, he understood that some encounters required something other than immediate aggression. Some required thought, understanding, and courage of a different kind. He stepped forward slowly, careful not to appear threatening. The princess did not flinch. Her gaze remained steady, and Kane felt an inexplicable sense of trust building, fragile but undeniable. As he approached, the princess spoke again, this time a few words added to the original question. "To know is to choose. To choose wisely, you must understand." Kane paused, letting the words sink in. His team watched silently, uncertainty written across their faces. Kane realized the gravity of the moment. They stood on the precipice of potential conflict, but the true battle was not of weapons. It was of understanding, of decision, of humanity proving its capacity for wisdom beyond mere aggression. The winds picked up, carrying fine dust across the rocky surface. Kane's mind raced with possibilities. He could choose to fire as his instincts screamed. He could choose to retreat, maintaining safety but potentially missing an unprecedented opportunity. Or he could choose to trust, to step into the unknown, to answer a question that challenged the very core of human behavior. His hand hovered over his weapon, yet it no longer felt like the only answer. His gaze met the princess's once more, and in that moment he understood something profound. Humans had survived not just because of strength or firepower, but because of their courage, their curiosity, and their willingness to face uncertainty with thought and heart. Kane lowered his weapon slowly, deliberately, until it hung at his side. The gesture was small, yet monumental. His team mirrored him, hesitant but guided by his lead. The princess's lips curved into a faint smile, and for the first time, Kane sensed a hint of approval, a recognition that humans were capable of something beyond what many aliens could imagine. It was a silent acknowledgement that this encounter could mark the beginning of something extraordinary, an understanding that humans were more than mere soldiers or explorers. They were thinkers, dreamers, and negotiators in a universe that often valued violence over wisdom. The princess extended her hand once more, this time an invitation rather than question. Kane hesitated briefly, then reached forward, touching her hand lightly. The contact was brief but electric, a connection that seemed to bridge the vast divide between species, between worlds, between understanding and fear. In that instant, Kane realized that this single encounter, this simple question, had the power to change everything, not just for him, but for all of humanity. Dust swirled around them, the twin suns casting long shadows across the rocky terrain. Kane felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders, heavier than any weapon he had ever carried. He knew that from this moment on, every choice, every action would carry the potential to reshape the future. The princess stepped back gracefully, her eyes never leaving his, and Kane understood that their meeting was only the beginning. The universe was vast, filled with unknowns, but in that moment he felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps humans were not alone, not as warriors, but as equals in a cosmos that demanded both courage and understanding. The standoff had ended without a single shot fired. The lesson, however, was far from over. Kane and his team would learn that in the universe, true strength lay not in weapons or armor, but in the mind, the heart, and the willingness to ask and answer the questions that others dared to ignore. The alien princess had asked her question, and humanity had responded, not with fire but with thought. That response, fragile yet profound, would echo across the stars in ways Kane could not yet imagine. As they began to move forward together, the landscape no longer seemed hostile. The winds no longer carried only dust, but possibility. Kane glanced at his team, seeing the mix of awe, apprehension, and cautious optimism in their faces. They had been tested, not by enemies, but by the challenge of understanding. The universe was watching, and humanity had taken its first step toward proving that it was more than just a fighting species. It was capable of wisdom, of trust, and of the courage to lower its weapon in the face of the unknown. Captain Elias Kane lowered his weapon, but his mind was still racing. The question the alien princess had asked echoed in his thoughts like a persistent drumbeat. Why do you fight without knowing? It was simple, yet it struck him with an intensity that made him reconsider every instinct, every training he had ever received. He glanced at his team, who were frozen in hesitation, eyes wide and muscles tense. For the first time in his career, Kane realized that the battlefield was not always physical. Sometimes the battle was within the mind itself. The princess did not speak again immediately. She stood with perfect posture, her hands folded lightly in front of her, exuding calm and authority. Her armor shimmered softly in the light of the twin suns, giving her an almost otherworldly glow. Kane felt an odd mix of fear and awe. Humans were trained to fight aliens, to assume the worst, and yet this being radiated no hostility. Instead, she seemed to ask for something intangible, understanding, patience, a willingness to consider before acting. Sergeant Morno broke the silence. "Captain, what do we do now? She hasn't attacked, but—" She trailed off, gesturing toward the princess. Kane shook his head. "We wait, we observe, that's all we can do for now." His voice was firm, yet inside uncertainty clawed at him. He had faced countless enemies before, and hesitation often meant death. But something told him that this was not an enemy in the traditional sense. The princess had not drawn a weapon. She had not made a threat. Her question had disarmed him far more effectively than any gun could. As they held their position, Kane allowed himself to look closer at the princess. Her eyes were deep and intelligent, with a softness that was unusual for someone so regal. They seemed almost human, yet different, as if her species had evolved a capacity to perceive emotions and intentions in ways humans rarely experienced. Kane felt a subtle pressure, not on his body, but on his thoughts, as if she could sense his inner turmoil. He quickly reminded himself not to succumb to fear or awe. Judgment could not be clouded by fascination. The princess raised a single hand slowly, pointing to the ground between them. Kane's visor detected a faint, glowing pattern etched into the rocky surface. It pulsed with energy, almost like a heartbeat. Kane knelt to examine it, recognizing symbols that were unfamiliar but somehow meaningful. The energy readings his team had tracked from orbit seemed to emanate from this very pattern. He realized that the princess was directing their attention to something vital, something they could not yet understand. She was guiding them, not threatening them. The thought unsettled him in ways he could not explain. Kane straightened and gestured for his team to spread out cautiously, keeping a safe distance from the pattern. "Stay alert, but no sudden moves," he instructed. The team complied, moving with precision and caution. Lila Morno approached him quietly, whispering, "Captain, do you think she's testing us?" Kane considered the idea. It was possible. Humans often underestimated aliens, assuming that power came only from weapons and numbers. But perhaps this princess was testing their minds, their judgment, their humanity. The princess's eyes seemed to flicker with approval at Kane's restraint. She lowered her hand and spoke again, this time her words carrying a weight that went beyond the surface. "Your kind fights because you fear the unknown. Fear drives you, yet you call it courage. Courage without understanding is destruction." Kane felt a chill run down his spine. The statement was not accusatory, it was observational, almost clinical. And yet it struck him with undeniable truth. He thought of the countless times humans had acted on fear, striking first, killing before knowing, leaving chaos behind in their wake. It was a lesson he had never been taught in training, and yet it felt like one he had needed to hear his entire life. Kane knelt beside the glowing pattern, studying it carefully. The symbols shifted slightly under his gaze, responding to his presence. He realized that it was a form of communication, a language not of words, but of intent and awareness. The princess had not merely posed a question. She had opened a doorway to understanding. Kane felt a strange curiosity blossom within him, one that rivaled his instinct to fight. He wanted to know more. He wanted to understand why this being existed, why she had come here, and why her presence demanded reflection rather than aggression. Suddenly, Kane's communicator crackled. "Captain, energy readings are spiking." The team's scientist, Dr. Marcus Lee, spoke from a few meters away. Kane motioned for calm and approached Lee. The scientist pointed to a small device that displayed fluctuating patterns of energy around the symbols. "It's alive in a way. I've never seen anything like it. It responds to thought, to intention. It's as if it's testing us." Kane nodded, feeling a sense of wonder he rarely experienced. Humans were explorers, soldiers, thinkers, but this was unlike any exploration they had undertaken before. This was not merely physical or technological, it was a challenge to their perception and judgment. Kane looked back at the princess, who observed them silently. He spoke carefully, aware that every word carried weight. "You are testing us," he said. "But why?" The princess's lips curved into a faint smile. "To understand each other, we must first understand ourselves. Knowledge without reflection is incomplete. You humans have power, ingenuity, and adaptability, yet you often wield it without insight. You fight, yes, but do you know why? Do you understand the consequences?" Kane felt the truth in her words. Humans had survived in countless environments and against countless threats, yet they were often blind to the full impact of their actions. The princess had seen this, and now she sought to teach him a lesson, not through force, but through understanding. Hours passed as Kane and his team explored the area under the princess's watchful eye. Every step revealed new patterns, new energy flows, and subtle signs of alien technology integrated seamlessly into the planet's natural structure. The princess moved among them effortlessly, never touching, never controlling, simply guiding. Kane began to notice small details. The way her eyes followed not just their movements but their expressions, the slight tilts of her head that conveyed encouragement or caution, the way her presence seemed to calm his team despite the unknown. He realized that humans often relied on weapons and aggression, but here was a being demonstrating that influence could come from thought, observation, and understanding alone. As the sun dipped lower, casting the landscape in deep orange and purple shadows, Kane finally spoke to the princess directly. "If what you say is true, if humans can survive because of courage and thought, then why test us in this way?" The princess regarded him quietly, her gaze steady. "Because to trust, one must see beyond instinct. To survive, one must act with knowledge. Your species has great potential, yet you often squander it on fear. I wish to see if you can rise above it." Kane felt the weight of her words. It was not merely a challenge, it was a judgment. Humanity, represented in this small team, was being measured, not for strength, but for wisdom. Kane looked at his team. They were tired, wary, but attentive. Their weapons were lowered, yet their alertness remained. He realized that they had already passed the first test, restraint. They had allowed curiosity to temper instinct, reflection to guide action. Kane's chest swelled with a quiet pride. Humans were often underestimated by other species, judged solely by their weapons or numbers. Yet here, their humanity, their ability to think, to reflect, to choose, was what made them remarkable. For the first time, Kane felt the deep truth of the HFY philosophy. Humans were special not because they could kill, but because they could understand, adapt, and decide. The princess finally spoke a phrase that seemed to resonate with the energy patterns beneath them. "To know is to see, and to see is to act. Only then can choices be made wisely." Kane felt a rush of clarity. He understood that the universe was not merely a place of conflict and survival. It was a place of learning, of growth, of tests that were not always violent. The challenge before them was not to destroy, but to comprehend. Humanity's strength lay in that comprehension, in their ability to act thoughtfully even in the presence of uncertainty. Night fell quickly on the planet, the twin suns disappearing below the horizon and leaving a sky filled with unfamiliar stars. Kane and his team gathered around the glowing symbols, observing them in silence. The princess remained nearby, her form luminous in the dim light. Kane felt a sense of connection he had never experienced before. The line between human and alien, known and unknown, threat and ally had blurred. The question she had asked, simple yet profound, had begun to transform their understanding of themselves and their place in the universe. Kane spoke quietly, almost to himself. We fight because we must, because we fear. But maybe we survive because we can choose differently, because we can think beyond fear. The princess inclined her head slightly, acknowledging his insight. Kane felt a bond forming, one built not on words, not on weapons, but on mutual recognition of potential, intelligence, and the courage to confront the unknown without immediately resorting to violence. As the night deepened, Kane's team settled into a cautious but alert rest. The princess stood alone, watching the stars, her expression unreadable yet serene. Kane lay in his makeshift camp, reflecting on the day's events. The universe was vast, dangerous, and full of unknowns, yet the encounter with the princess had illuminated something essential about humanity. Their greatest strength was not in their weapons, their ships, or even their training. Their greatest strength lay in their capacity to question, to reflect, and to act wisely when faced with uncertainty. That lesson, Kane realized, would guide them far more than any orders from command ever could. In the stillness of the night, Kane made a silent promise. Humanity would not merely survive in this galaxy. They would strive to understand it, to rise above fear, to prove that their ingenuity, compassion, and courage were forces as potent as any weapon. And when the morning came, when the princess returned to guide them further, Kane would be ready, not as a soldier primed for battle, but as a human ready to embrace the challenge of knowledge, choice, and understanding. The journey had only begun, and already the universe felt infinitely larger, infinitely more mysterious, and infinitely more full of potential than Kane had ever imagined. The next morning, the twin suns rose slowly over the jagged horizon, painting the rocky plains in shades of gold and crimson. Captain Elias Kane had not slept much. His mind replayed the encounter with the alien princess repeatedly. The question she had asked still echoed in his head. Why do you fight without knowing? He realized that the question had become more than a challenge. It had become a mirror reflecting human instincts and decisions. Kane knew that today, more than ever, he would need to think carefully, to act deliberately, and to prove that humanity could rise above fear and aggression. The princess had not disappeared overnight. She stood at a distance, watching the team with her serene composure. Her luminous armor glimmered softly under the morning light, and her gaze carried both authority and curiosity. Kane approached her cautiously, aware that every move was being observed. "Good morning," he said, keeping his voice neutral yet firm. "We intend to continue exploring the patterns you showed us yesterday. Will you guide us?" The princess inclined her head slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement. She did not speak, yet her presence conveyed agreement, as if to say, follow and learn. Kane signaled his team to advance, moving carefully across the uneven terrain. Dr. Marcus Lee, the scientist, adjusted his sensors to analyze the energy patterns beneath their feet. "Captain, the readings are even stronger this morning," he said. "It's as if the energy responds to us, to our intentions." Kane nodded, feeling a sense of cautious excitement. He had encountered advanced technology before, but nothing like this. It was alive in a way he could not explain, sensitive not just to movement or sound, but to thought, emotion, and purpose. Humans had faced countless alien species, but rarely had they encountered one that tested their minds rather than their firepower. As they moved deeper into the rocky landscape, Kane noticed subtle shifts in the terrain. Rocks rearranged themselves slightly, forming pathways and barriers as though the planet itself was responding to their progress. The princess walked beside them without touching anything, yet Kane sensed that her influence was guiding the environment. It was a form of communication beyond words, and he marveled at her ability to interact with the planet in such a seamless way. Humans relied on tools and weapons. She relied on presence and understanding. Kane felt a mix of admiration and humility. He realized that humans had much to learn from beings like her. The team reached a plateau where the energy patterns became far more concentrated. Kane crouched to examine the symbols etched into the stone. They were complex, yet somehow harmonious, pulsing in rhythm with the planet itself. Dr. Lee adjusted his device, recording the patterns. "Captain, this is incredible," he whispered. "It's as if the planet is alive, responding to us directly. The princess, she's not controlling it forcefully, she's teaching it to interact with us." Kane nodded, feeling the weight of the discovery. This was not merely exploration. It was a lesson in understanding and communication, a challenge that tested the very nature of human perception. Kane looked at the princess and spoke cautiously. "We've faced enemies before, aliens who sought to destroy us, who judged us by our weapons and our strength. But you seem to be testing our minds instead. Why?" The princess's eyes met his, deep and unwavering. Finally she spoke, her voice calm but carrying undeniable authority. "To know is to see. To see is to understand. To understand is to act. Your species has survived countless threats because you are capable of adaptation, creativity, and courage. But you also wield fear as a weapon, and that blinds you. I wish to see if you can rise beyond it." Kane felt a shiver of realization. The princess was not simply curious. She was judging humanity's potential, and his actions, along with his team's, would define her perception of their worth. The plateau was vast, stretching into the horizon, but strange formations dotted the landscape. Towers of stone that seemed too precise to be natural, spiraling in impossible geometries. Kane noticed subtle energy currents flowing through the structures, responding to the team's presence. "Captain," Dr. Lee murmured, "these formations, they're like living circuits. I've never seen anything like it. They react to thought, to intention." Kane's eyes widened. Humans had always relied on tools, weapons, and technology, yet here was a system that operated on a level that was psychological, mental, and intuitive. He felt a mix of excitement and humility. Humanity had faced dangers across the stars, but rarely had they been challenged to think beyond instinct and reflex. The princess gestured toward a cluster of formations at the plateau's edge. Kane motioned for his team to follow. As they approached, the formations shifted slightly, opening a pathway that revealed a cavern beneath the surface. Kane peered into the darkness, sensing energy flowing from deep within. "Prepare for anything," he instructed, though his voice carried less urgency than usual. The princess did not move toward the cavern but watched, her expression calm, as if allowing humans to take the initiative. Kane felt a strange sense of trust forming, fragile but undeniable. Humans were often judged by their actions, and now they had a chance to prove that courage, intelligence, and wisdom could shape outcomes more than brute force. Inside the cavern, the energy patterns became more pronounced, illuminating walls with soft, shifting light. Kane could feel the subtle influence of the princess guiding their path without forcing it. "Look at the walls," Dr. Lee said, awe in his voice. "They're responding to our thoughts, our intentions. The princess, she's teaching us to interact, not just observe." Kane nodded. Humans had always been explorers, but this was unlike any mission they had ever undertaken. It was not about conquest or survival. It was about understanding, learning, and proving that humanity could engage with forces beyond their comprehension. Suddenly, the princess extended a hand toward Kane. A soft pulse of energy radiated from her, and Kane felt a vision form in his mind. He saw flashes of human history, battles fought, victories won, losses suffered. He saw humans making decisions driven by fear, by impulse, and by courage. The vision was not accusatory, it was instructive. Kane understood that the princess was showing him a reflection of his species, highlighting both strengths and weaknesses. Humans were resourceful, courageous, and inventive, yet they often acted without understanding. The realization struck him with profound clarity. Kane lowered his head, absorbing the vision. He understood now why she had asked her question. It was not merely rhetorical, it was a test, a challenge to see if humans could rise above fear and act with knowledge. "We've fought without knowing," he admitted aloud, his voice soft but resolute. "We've survived, yes, but we can do more. We can choose wisely if we learn to see first." The princess inclined her head slightly, a faint smile forming on her lips. It was the first sign of approval Kane had seen, and it filled him with cautious hope. Hours passed as the team explored deeper into the cavern. The princess led them silently, guiding their interactions with the energy patterns. Kane noticed subtle shifts in his own thinking. He felt a growing awareness of the environment, of the consequences of each action, and of the importance of understanding before reacting. His team mirrored his change, moving more deliberately, observing more keenly, and engaging with the alien technology thoughtfully rather than impulsively. Kane realized that this was perhaps the most valuable lesson they had ever received. The ability to act with intention and insight, even in the presence of the unknown. As they reached a central chamber, the energy patterns coalesced into a towering structure of light and stone. Kane felt a surge of awe. The structure seemed alive, responsive, intelligent. Dr. Lee whispered. It's as if the planet itself is aware, and the princess, she is its voice. Kane nodded. Humans had often believed that strength lay in weapons and strategy. Yet here was proof that influence could come from understanding, empathy, and the ability to perceive beyond the surface. He felt a profound respect for the princess and for his species, realizing that humans possessed qualities that could rival even the most advanced civilizations if they chose to cultivate them. The princess finally spoke, breaking the silence. "Your species is remarkable," she said. "Not because of strength, not because of technology, but because of potential. You can learn, adapt, and choose. Your courage is commendable, but your wisdom is what I seek. Can you act with knowledge, even when fear whispers otherwise?" Kane felt the weight of her words settle over him. He realized that this was not merely a test of skill or courage. It was a test of character, insight, and the very essence of what made humans unique. Kane turned to his team. They looked back at him with expressions of uncertainty, curiosity, and determination. "We can," he said quietly, his voice carrying conviction. "We will act with knowledge. We will prove that humanity can rise above fear, that we can choose wisely." The princess's eyes met his, and Kane felt a silent acknowledgement, a recognition that humans were capable of more than she had ever expected. It was a moment of mutual respect, a bridge forming between species, built not on weapons but on understanding and choice. As they prepared to leave the cavern, Kane reflected on the lessons of the past day. Humans had survived countless challenges, often by instinct and aggression. Yet now they had encountered a being who demanded something different: reflection, insight, and wisdom. Kane understood that this encounter would shape not only their mission, but the very way humans approached the universe. Strength was important, but it was not everything. Courage without understanding could lead to destruction. Knowledge, tempered by reflection and empathy, was the true path to survival and greatness. The princess led them out of the cavern and onto a plateau overlooking the horizon. Kane gazed at the vast expanse before them, realizing that the universe was far larger and more complex than he had ever imagined. The princess's presence reminded him that humanity was not alone, and that their choices, their courage, and their wisdom could influence events in ways they had yet to comprehend. The lesson was clear. Humans were special not just because they could fight, but because they could think, reflect, and choose wisely in the face of the unknown. Kane felt a sense of pride, tempered by humility. Humanity had potential, yes, but it was up to them to prove that they could live up to it. The princess had asked a simple question, yet it had revealed the depth of human nature, their capacity for growth, and the promise of greatness that lay within them. Kane knew that this was only the beginning. The universe was full of mysteries, challenges, and opportunities, and humans would need every ounce of courage, intellect, and wisdom to navigate it successfully. As the sun set, casting the plateau in hues of deep orange and purple, Kane made a silent vow. Humanity would not merely survive. They would rise not through fear and aggression, but through understanding, ingenuity, and the courage to act wisely. The princess had seen their potential, and now it was up to them to prove that her faith was justified. Kane knew that their journey had only just begun, but for the first time, he felt a deep, unshakable confidence in the human spirit. The following day brought a tense calm over the rocky planet. Captain Elias Kane and his team had grown more attuned to the princess's presence, moving with deliberate caution and careful observation. The energy patterns across the plateau seemed almost alive, reacting subtly to their intentions and thoughts. The princess walked alongside them, serene and composed, her luminous armor reflecting the light of the twin suns. Kane had come to respect her not just as an alien being, but as a teacher, guiding them through lessons that no textbook, soldier's training, or human experience could provide. As they ventured further, the calm was broken by a sudden tremor beneath their feet. The ground vibrated with force, sending loose stones tumbling down the slopes. Kane raised his hand, signaling the team to halt. The princess's eyes narrowed slightly, and she gestured toward the horizon. Kane's visor zoomed in, and a sight emerged that made his chest tighten. Dozens of alien ships were descending from the sky, moving in formation. They were larger, heavily armed, and unlike any species Kane had encountered before. These were not the princess's ships, he realized. These were a hostile faction, likely misinterpreting the team's presence as a threat to their empire. "Brace yourselves," Kane ordered. The team scrambled into defensive positions, weapons raised, hearts pounding. Yet as he looked at the princess, he saw no fear, no panic, only calm assessment. Kane felt a strange tension build inside him. This was the moment when human instinct and alien wisdom would collide. They had to act, but the question remained, how? Attacking recklessly could ignite war. Hesitation could lead to annihilation. The hostile ships opened fire, energy pulses streaking across the sky. Kane shouted orders, and his team fired back, dodging and weaving as the alien assault intensified. Yet the princess did not raise a weapon, nor did she intervene directly. Kane realized that she trusted humans to solve this challenge themselves, to rise to the occasion. That trust was heavy with responsibility, yet it also sparked something within Kane, a realization that humans had the creativity, adaptability, and ingenuity to overcome situations where sheer firepower might fail. Kane surveyed the battlefield. The terrain was rough, full of jagged cliffs and deep ravines. The alien ships relied on overwhelming force, straight-line attacks, and predictable targeting systems. Kane saw opportunity. Humans had survived countless encounters by thinking differently, by turning disadvantages into advantages, by seeing patterns others missed. He gave rapid orders to his team, directing them to use the terrain to their benefit. Soldiers ducked behind rocks, using elevation to their advantage, while Dr. Lee improvised small devices that emitted bursts of electromagnetic interference to confuse the enemy sensors. The princess watched, her eyes reflecting quiet admiration. Kane realized that humans were being judged not for their weapons, not for their numbers, but for their ingenuity, courage, and ability to adapt under pressure. He moved quickly across the plateau, coordinating attacks, setting traps, and improvising with the tools and resources available. The alien ships had superior technology, yet they struggled against unpredictability, against tactics that broke their expectations. Kane felt a surge of pride. Humans were underestimated far too often. Here, their adaptability and creativity were proving decisive. One alien ship descended aggressively, aiming directly at Kane's position. He ducked behind a jagged rock, motioning for Morneau to flank. Using a combination of speed, careful timing, and terrain knowledge, Morneau's team launched a counterattack, forcing the ship to retreat. Kane realized that every human instinct, strategic thinking, courage under fire, and improvisation was coming into play. He felt the familiar pulse of adrenaline, yet now it was tempered with clarity. This was not blind aggression, this was ingenuity in action. The princess stepped forward slightly, raising her hand in a subtle gesture. Kane felt the air shift, the energy patterns around the plateau responding. The rocks seemed to hum, channels of energy flowing in response to the princess's presence. Kane understood immediately. She was enhancing the environment, not with brute force, but with subtle guidance. The humans' actions were amplified by the energy of the planet itself, responding to their intelligence and intent. Kane's team noticed the effect, gaining an almost instinctive awareness of enemy movement and the terrain's potential. Kane took advantage of this, devising a bold maneuver. He instructed his team to draw the alien ships into a narrow canyon, using the rocks as natural barriers. The aliens, expecting a straightforward engagement, followed. Kane's team used controlled bursts of energy interference and precise shots to disorient them. The canyon amplified the effect, turning the enemy's strength into a disadvantage. Kane's heart pounded, but his mind was clear. Every action, every decision, reflected not just survival instinct, but strategic thinking and creativity. Humanity was proving itself in a way that no traditional test could measure. Amid the chaos, Kane noticed the princess observing quietly from a higher plateau. Her expression remained serene, yet he felt the unspoken communication between them. Humans had survived countless battles by relying on speed, strength, and force. Yet here they were succeeding through ingenuity, judgment, and adaptability. Kane realized that she was teaching him another lesson, that courage without wisdom could be reckless, and power without creativity could be meaningless. Humans had all three traits, and their potential was only beginning to show. The battle intensified, but Kane's tactics were working. The alien ships were being funneled into positions where their advanced weapons became liabilities rather than advantages. One by one, the enemy forces were neutralized or forced to retreat. Kane moved swiftly, coordinating his team with precision. Morno's quick thinking and Lee's technical improvisations proved invaluable. Kane felt a deep sense of pride in his team. Humanity's strength was not in individual brilliance alone, but in collaboration, adaptability, and the ability to think under pressure. Finally, the last alien ship hovered above the canyon, seemingly unwilling to advance further. Kane knew that the confrontation could end in bloodshed if he acted rashly. He lowered his weapon, signaling a halt. The ship paused, then slowly retreated, following the lead of its destroyed companions. Kane exhaled, the tension in his body slowly releasing. The plateau was quiet once more, save for the soft hum of the energy patterns responding to the princess's presence. Humanity had survived, not through brute force, but through ingenuity, strategy, and courage tempered with wisdom. The princess descended to Kane's level, her gaze calm and approving. Kane felt a mixture of relief and awe. She spoke softly, yet the words carried immense weight. "Your species is remarkable. You survive not because you are strongest, but because you can see beyond the obvious. You act with courage, with knowledge, and with creativity. This is the trait I seek." Kane nodded, understanding the depth of her praise. Humans had always been underestimated, judged only by their weapons, numbers, or technology. Yet here their greatest strengths, courage, ingenuity, and adaptability, had proven decisive. Kane looked at his team, seeing their exhaustion, relief, and quiet pride. They had faced a force far superior in technology, yet they had emerged victorious through thought, creativity, and unity. Kane felt a renewed sense of purpose. Humans were capable of more than survival. They were capable of greatness when they embraced their unique strengths and approached challenges with wisdom and courage. The princess had not merely observed them. She had witnessed humanity's potential in action. Hours later, the team regrouped on the plateau, surveying the retreating alien ships. Kane spoke quietly to the princess. "We could have fought them differently, used brute force, or fled, but we chose another way." "And it worked." The princess inclined her head, a subtle gesture of approval. "That is the way of your species at its best, courage tempered by wisdom, action guided by understanding. Remember this lesson, for it will shape your path among the stars." Kane felt the weight of her words, realizing that this encounter would define not only their mission, but the way humans approach the universe in the future. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the rocky plateau. Kane allowed himself a moment of reflection. Humanity had faced countless challenges, often surviving through instinct and aggression. Yet today they had demonstrated something greater: the ability to think, to adapt, to collaborate, and to act with knowledge even in the presence of fear and overwhelming odds. Kane felt a surge of hope. If humans could consistently harness these qualities, there was no limit to what they could achieve in the galaxy. The princess stood silently, observing the team with quiet satisfaction. Kane approached her, lowering his head slightly in respect. "Thank you," he said. "Not just for guiding us, but for showing us what we are capable of." The princess's eyes met his, and for the first time, Kane sensed a hint of warmth beneath her regal composure. "The potential was always within you," she replied. "I merely provided the challenge. It is up to your species to rise to it again and again." Kane understood the truth of her words. Humanity had been tested, and they had risen. But the galaxy was vast, filled with unknowns, challenges, and opportunities that would demand the same courage, ingenuity, and wisdom again and again. As night fell, the team made camp on the plateau, the stars above unfamiliar yet brilliant. Kane gazed upward, feeling a mixture of awe and determination. Humans had survived countless trials, yet the universe demanded more than mere survival. It demanded understanding, adaptability, and the courage to act wisely. Kane felt a quiet pride in his species. They were not just survivors. They were thinkers, innovators, and creators, capable of achieving greatness if they embraced their unique strengths. The princess stood nearby, her luminous form casting a gentle glow in the darkness. Kane realized that humanity had been given an unprecedented opportunity to demonstrate their value, not through war or aggression, but through intelligence, courage, and choice. He knew that their actions today would resonate far beyond this planet, shaping the perceptions of alien civilizations and defining the future of humanity's role in the galaxy. Kane felt a deep sense of responsibility settle over him. He knew that their journey was far from over. The universe was vast, full of unknown challenges and extraordinary possibilities. But for the first time, he felt a profound confidence in humanity's ability to face those challenges with ingenuity, courage, and wisdom. The princess's challenge had revealed the best of them, and now it was up to humans to continue rising to every test, proving that their potential was limitless. The night on the rocky planet was quiet, save for the distant hum of energy patterns still flowing through the formations. Captain Elias Kane sat beside the faintly glowing patterns, his team resting nearby. The princess remained standing, her luminous armor casting a soft glow that illuminated the plateau. Kane's mind wandered, reflecting on the events of the past days, the questions, the tests, and the unexpected battle with the hostile alien faction. Humanity had proven something remarkable. Courage and ingenuity could rival brute force, and thoughtfulness could be as powerful as any weapon. Kane finally spoke aloud, almost to himself. We survived because we thought differently, because we acted with knowledge and courage, not just instinct. The princess's eyes met his. Yes, she said softly, and yet this is only the beginning. Knowledge alone is not enough. You must carry it forward, teach it to others, and show that your species can rise to challenges without succumbing to fear or violence. Kane felt the weight of her words. Humanity had proven itself in this small encounter, but the universe was vast, filled with unknown civilizations, unimaginable dangers, and countless opportunities. Their actions now would shape the perception of humans for generations to come. Doctor. Marcus Lee looked up from his notes, still examining the energy patterns. Captain, he said, these symbols, the energy, it's a language, but it's more than that. It's like it responds to thought, intention, even morality. Humans might be the first species capable of understanding it fully because we can reflect, we can choose. Kane nodded, feeling a deep sense of pride. Humans had always relied on survival skills, instincts, and weapons, but now it was clear that their true strength lay in their minds and their hearts. Sergeant Leela Morneau approached Kane quietly. Captain, what do you think she wants from us now? Kane looked toward the princess. She was still observing the energy, serene and calm. She wants us to prove ourselves, not just here, but wherever humanity goes, he said. We've shown courage, ingenuity, and thoughtfulness. But that's only the beginning. The universe will keep testing us, and we must keep rising. Morneau nodded, understanding the magnitude of what they had achieved. Humans had been judged, and they had exceeded expectations, not through technology or sheer power, but through qualities uniquely their own. The princess finally turned to Kane and gestured for him to follow. Without a word, she led them to a plateau that overlooked a valley filled with more of the glowing formations. Kane could feel the energy intensifying as they approached. These patterns, he said, they're incredible. They seem alive. The princess inclined her head slightly. They are, she said. They reflect the intent, the awareness, and the choices of those who interact with them. You have proven that your species can engage with the universe in a way that is thoughtful, creative, and courageous. Kane felt a surge of pride. Humans were often underestimated, even feared by advanced civilizations. Yet here, they had proven that their strengths went beyond weapons and numbers. They could think, adapt, and act wisely. The princess raised a hand, and Kane felt the energy flow around him intensify. Visions appeared in his mind, glimpses of the galaxy, countless civilizations, and opportunities that humans had never dreamed of. He saw wars that could be avoided, alliances that could be formed, and knowledge that could be shared. The universe is vast, the princess said. Few species can navigate it without succumbing to fear or aggression. You, Elias Kane, and your species have the potential to do more than survive. You can shape it. Kane's heart pounded. The weight of responsibility was immense, but so was the sense of possibility. Humans had been given a chance to rise beyond their instincts, to demonstrate the qualities that made them special. As Kane looked at his team, he realized that they shared his understanding. Their faces reflected awe, determination, and the quiet pride of knowing they had proven humanity's worth. Morneau spoke softly. Captain, do you think humanity is ready for this? Kane smiled, feeling a surge of confidence. We are ready. Not because we are the strongest, but because we can think, adapt, and act with courage. That is what makes us human, and it's what makes us capable of greatness. The princess stepped forward, her eyes meeting Kane's. I will leave you now, she said. But the choices you have made, The courage you have shown and the wisdom you have demonstrated will echo across the stars. Your species has earned the opportunity to grow, to explore, and to shape the galaxy. But remember, potential alone is not enough. You must act consistently, wisely, and with reflection. Kane bowed slightly in acknowledgement. We will, he said. We will honor this opportunity. Before departing, the princess handed Kane a small, crystalline artifact. It pulsed with energy, responding to his touch. This will allow your species to access knowledge beyond your current understanding, she explained. Use it wisely. Humans are capable of more than you realize, but only if you choose to act thoughtfully. Kane felt a mix of awe and responsibility. The artifact represented not just knowledge, but trust, a recognition of humanity's ability to handle power, insight, and the consequences of choice. As the princess ascended into the sky, Kane watched her disappear among the stars. A quiet wind swept over the plateau, carrying with it the energy of the planet and the sense of a mission that had only just begun. Kane turned to his team, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. We have a responsibility now, he said. The galaxy will test us, challenge us, and judge us. But we have proven something today. Humans are capable of greatness, not through weapons alone, but through courage, thought, and choice. That is our true strength. The team nodded, understanding the gravity of their mission. They had survived, yes, but more importantly, they had proven that humanity could rise above fear, adapt, and act with wisdom. Kane felt a deep sense of pride in his species. Humans were often underestimated, their potential ignored or dismissed. Yet here, on a remote planet at the edge of explored space, they had demonstrated qualities that could rival even the most advanced civilizations. Night fell over the plateau, the stars above shimmering like scattered gems. Kane gazed at the heavens, imagining the countless worlds that awaited exploration. He realized that the princess's test was more than a challenge, it was a lesson in perspective. Humans were not merely fighters or survivors, they were thinkers, innovators, and creators. The galaxy was vast, filled with opportunities and dangers alike, but humanity had the capacity to navigate it with courage, wisdom, and ingenuity. Kane reflected on the journey so far. Each moment with the princess had taught him something new: patience, understanding, observation, and the power of thoughtful action. He realized that these qualities were just as important as weapons and technology, perhaps even more so. Humans could survive through aggression, yes, but they could thrive through reflection, ingenuity, and collaboration. That realization gave Kane a renewed sense of purpose. He would carry these lessons forward, not just for himself, but for the future of humanity. The crystalline artifact pulsed softly in Kane's hands, a reminder of the trust and opportunity that had been granted to them. It symbolized more than knowledge. It symbolized the potential for humanity to rise above fear, to choose wisely, and to embrace the best qualities of their species. Kane felt a deep responsibility. This was a chance to shape the future, to prove that humans were not merely survivors, but a species capable of greatness. As the team prepared to leave the planet, Kane took one last look at the glowing patterns. They seemed to shimmer in response, almost as if acknowledging humanity's achievement. He knew that the journey ahead would be filled with challenges, but he also knew that humans had demonstrated their unique strengths. Courage, ingenuity, adaptability, and wisdom, they were not just words, but the essence of what made humanity special. Kane felt a surge of determination. The universe was vast and unknown, but humans had proven that they were more than capable of meeting its demands. The journey back to their ship was quiet, but filled with a shared sense of purpose. Kane walked alongside Morno and Lee, each step reinforcing their understanding that humanity's potential was limitless when guided by courage, thought, and choice. Kane reflected on the princess's words, the battles they had faced, and the lessons they had learned. The universe would continue to challenge them, but humanity had the ability to rise, to think differently, and to act wisely. As they boarded the ship and lifted off from the rocky surface, Kane gazed down at the planet. It had been a place of tests, of challenges, and of revelations. Humanity had emerged not just intact, but elevated. Kane felt a profound sense of pride and hope. The princess's question had sparked a transformation, a realization that humans could be more than survivors. They could be creators, innovators, and thinkers, shaping the galaxy with courage and wisdom. In the quiet of the ship, Kane spoke softly to his team. We have proven our worth, but our journey is just beginning. The universe is vast, and there are countless opportunities ahead. We must carry these lessons with us, act with thought and courage, and continue to show what humanity is truly capable of. Morno nodded, her eyes reflecting determination. Dr. Lee smiled, excitement sparkling in his expression. Kane felt a deep sense of unity with his team. Together, they represented the best of humanity: ingenuity, courage, and the willingness to rise to challenges beyond comprehension. As the ship soared through the stars, Kane held the crystalline artifact in his hands, feeling the pulse of energy within it. It was a reminder of the trust the princess had placed in humanity and a symbol of the opportunities that awaited them. Kane knew that the artifact was more than a tool. It was a challenge, a call to action, and a beacon of potential. Humanity had been tested, and they had risen. Now it was their responsibility to continue that legacy, to explore, to learn, and to shape the universe with courage, wisdom, and ingenuity. The stars stretched endlessly before them, a canvas of infinite possibilities. Kane gazed forward, feeling a sense of awe and determination. Humanity had proven that they were special, not because of weapons or numbers, but because of their courage, thoughtfulness, and ability to choose wisely. The journey ahead would be filled with challenges, but Kane knew that humans were ready. They had risen to the test, and the universe would bear witness to the power of their mind, heart, and spirit. As the ship disappeared into the cosmos, Kane felt the quiet echo of the princess's words in his mind. To know is to see is to act. Only then can choices be made wisely. Kane smiled. Humanity had learned, had risen, and had proven their worth. And this was only the beginning of a story that would stretch across the stars. A story of courage, wisdom, and the undeniable greatness of the human spirit.